thanks for coming. These are our quarterly updates that we had talked about doing in the beginning, where we're just trying to give you a piece of different departments all over the company, what's going on with Dorn Transfer, just trying to keep everybody informed to what's happening. So before I get started, I want to ask, do any of you have anything that you want to make sure I cover today? Questions you have, or concerns, or things that you want me to go over? No, nothing. Okay. Okay, so then this is the fun part. Who can tell me what our values are? And I want one person to tell them all. So does anybody want to give it a shot? Go ahead.
Customer experience, continuous improvement, personal touch, safety, and service excellence.
Awesome. You did the best of anybody in here, of any group that we've had. So here's a fun for you. These are the Yeti knockoffs. Yeah. All right, awesome. So yeah, you're right. That's going back on the values, and we're going to just keep going over that. And again, with the values, everything you do should be able to tie back to one of our values. And if it doesn't tie back to one of the values, it's probably not the right decision. So those are things that we should be thinking about all the time. And all the actions that we do at Dorn, do they tie back to the values, our core values? So let's start with safety, one of our values. Now, when we recreated this culture of safety 2 years ago, when Hamel Companies purchased Dorn Transfer, that was the most important thing. This is exciting because we're finally seeing this really pay off. If you look at that green line, that's 2017. Year-to-date, our accidents are down 50%, so that's huge. Then you look at the injuries and look at that drop, down to 50% there as well, year over day. The one thing about those accidents here is that the only ones we had, even though we had a bit of an uptick, were pretty minor ones. So that's exciting news. As far as the CSA scores go, and the CSA scores are our safety scores, that is, they're not public right now. They're going to be able to be viewed by the public again pretty soon. Why it's important for us to keep those under control is the big shippers, and especially like a hazmat type shipper or a John Deere type shipper. If we have a major accident and we had a bad CSA score, that can really come back to bite them. So that it can show that they aren't being responsible by picking a good, safe carrier. So as far as CSA scores go, we have 2 alerts still. That's not bad. Both of them, one of them is really close to dropping off. The other one, hazmat, it was some minor things that have happened, but operations is really going over that with everybody to make sure we pay attention to those things, get everything marked the right way, follow the right steps so that we're following the CSA scores. Hours of safety was the other one, and that will drop off as soon as we get the ELDs on board with all the trucks, because then they're able to do those electronic logs. Hours of safety, it's not like we're fudging our hours, it's more the driver's not keeping up with their logs. So it's just minor things, but that will put our CSA score over. Service, and so any of you who deal with customers on a daily basis know that our service really dropped down in March of this year. So looking at the purple line is 2017, and that was a pretty disappointing drop that we had. We were down to 90%, which isn't anywhere close to what we need. The exciting part about this, we hit this slump every year about this time because of the ag industry. The exciting part is, in the past, if you look at that orange, that was 2015, we dropped down and we didn't really bounce back until fall. So it really took us a long time to recover. We got complacent, we got used to having bad service, and we just kind of lived with it. This year, we dropped down to that 90% in March. So far in April, we're back up to 97%. So we really reacted well. Now we have to figure out how to fix this so we don't go through this again next year, because even though our bill counts are high, customers don't care. What they care about is that their freight delivers on time. So we need to figure out how to fix this and not drop down next year. But this is really exciting news, because for those of us who've lived through it in the past, when we used to drop and stay low, that's really a bad experience for the customer. It's hard to convince them that things are okay when you do that to them every year. Digging in a little deeper for the company direct business, it's a little hard to see, but here is the actual bill count. So this kind of gives you a snapshot of why the service dropped down so much. If you look at January, we had 78,000 bills. In February, we had 80,000. Well, look at March, 98,000. That's a huge increase. And so that's why the service dropped. Again, customers don't care. They just want their freight delivered on time. Here's some good news over here. So April, you can see the company direct, we're back up to 93, which is great news. Here were our struggling terminals, Grand Island, North Platte, Janesville, and Spencer. All of them in April are already back up at a decent place. So that's exciting news. Janesville was our worst terminal just a couple months ago, and look at where they're at now. They're one of our best, 96%. So that's a great turnaround, and part of the reasoning behind that is because we had Russ going up there, and obviously he's our best operator. So that made a big difference. But the other thing is we've done some different things this year with pricing and with really paying attention to the business we're getting. So in the past, if we had a terminal like Janesville that was really falling apart, we would just let it fall apart and we would continue to bring the freight on. This year we got more aggressive. We went after our blanket price 3PL customers, which if you're not familiar with the blanket price 3PLs, it's a system anybody can go into. You can open a free account and go to Unishippers and you can sign up and you can get a rate quote from a whole bunch of carriers. So we have rates working behind the scenes. Well, those are just blanket price rates. We don't know what the customer looks like. All of our blanket price 3PLs are the same. The nice thing about the blanket price business is they understand that we're using them where we need them. So what we did is we went to our blanket price 3PLs and we said, turn off Janesville. We don't want any of this freight for the next month until we tell you to turn it back on. So that helped. We turned some of that business off. We also looked at our John Deere business, some truckload business we were getting, and we asked them to turn those lanes off because we were giving them a bad experience, we're giving other customers a bad experience. We just were over capacity there. So we did some adjusting ourselves there as well as fixing the service, which was obvious when you see that service go back up. Omaha's still struggling. They're at 80%. We recognize that. They have a lot of attention on them right now to try to get their service back up. I just saw an email from Ivan today that they're already doing much better. So I think that by the end of April, we're going to see a good improvement there. And going into May, they'll be a lot better. So yield is a big thing that we're talking about in sales this year. Yield is our revenue per hundredweight. So the higher the yield, the more profit we should have on that freight. And it's not a perfect number because it's not taking into account a whole lot of different factors. So if it's traveling a far distance or if it's a truckload, the yield won't look as good because of that. So the yield is just kind of it's a broad picture of how we're doing. We're getting to where we can price things using our costing system so we know if we're profitable or not. We haven't gotten there yet. It's not perfect yet. So in the meantime, we're talking a lot about yield and we're trying to drive that number up. So you can see in 2017, we're making some really nice progress. We're getting more revenue per hundredweight of freight that's on the trucks. So that's really good. I'm proud of our sales team and I'm proud of our pricing team for really pushing that through. As far as management changes go, so all of you know Russ Scheffler. He's been with us forever. He is our best operator by far, and I would say he's probably the best operator in any LTL carrier I know. So he can go out and he can run a terminal, he can fix a terminal, he knows what's going wrong, and he can see things that other people can't see. So Russ has, through the years, moved up to where he was Vice President of Operations. What he found when he went back out into the field to work Janesville is that he really missed being out there and getting his hands dirty and doing what he loved. He was stuck here too much, pushing paper, doing numbers, and managing behind a desk. So he asked, this position came open, the Director of Operations, he asked if he could step into that position. We felt like it was a perfect fit for him. It makes him happier, he's doing what he loves, and he's doing really what he's best at. So then what that meant was we brought in Michael Leathers here recently. Michael had the most experience as Vice President of Administration in his previous LTL carrier. John was our Vice President of Administration. We brought him in that role, but previously he was Vice President of Operations. So he really had a lot more of an operations background. He was learning a new area and doing a great job at it, but it made more sense for us to move him into operations since that was really where his most strengths are, and then have Michael come in as our Vice President of Administration. So we did a little bit of shifting around. If you haven't been down to meet Michael, he's a great guy. I highly recommend it. He's a real team player, and I think he's going to fit our culture well, and real knowledgeable. So we're excited to have him on our team. Part of our continuous improvement. So continuous improvement is all about eliminating waste and being more efficient at everything we do. So a little bit of a lesson. Fuel is our second largest cost driver. We spend $1 million a month on fuel here. So paying attention to fuel and making sure that we're making the best decisions there, it really impacts us. Carriers like Dorn, we run so many rural routes that the fuel is a bigger piece of our overall cost than it is for carriers that are in an urban setting. Because that freight has to ride on that truck so far, it's using so much fuel, the fuel should be a bigger piece. Well, recently we found out that our fuel surcharge table was quite a bit lower than our competition. So we weren't paying attention, they've been raising theirs and we hadn't. So this is a huge opportunity for us to try to recoup some of those costs. So we just added a new fuel surcharge table, and it was a significant rate increase for those of our customers who are on it. We haven't had much pushback, so that's pretty exciting. We're trying to recoup some revenue there. The other exciting thing is, as we put these electronic log devices in the truck, we found out that we're idling 25% of the time, which burns a gallon of fuel an hour. The drivers weren't supposed to do this. There's systems that lock it down so they can't idle while they go in and pick their freight up, just leave the truck running. But they were finding ways around it. So as soon as we get these ELDs in, terminal by terminal, we're seeing this and we can stop that behavior right away. So that alone is paying for the ELDs that we're putting in the trucks. And over time, that's gonna save us quite a bit of money. So not only are we charging the customers a little bit more, we're also making better choices here to help save costs there. Pitt Ohio supply chain. So I know I've touched on the Pitt Ohio connection a little bit. I just want to make sure everybody's real comfortable with the different facets of Pitt Ohio and how they relate to us. So Pitt Ohio is our sister company. We're going to be talking more about how we're all part of this Pitt Ohio Transportation Group, which doesn't change anything here. We're still Dorn Transfer. U.S. Special Delivery is still U.S. Special Delivery. ECM is still ECM. Nobody's changing their name or their image or their culture. We're all keeping that intact. But we might be talking more about this piece called the Pitt Ohio Transportation Group, which is really just the umbrella over all of it. And the idea is that we're trying to leverage each other and leverage our relationships with each other to give customers a better package or a bigger piece to sell. So Pitt Ohio Supply Chain was actually developed as their 3PL. So when they get an opportunity from the Pitt Ohio team, and if they can't take care of it in the Pitt Ohio LTL carrier, they can pass it up to Pitt Ohio Supply Chain. Pitt Ohio Supply Chain is going to try to find one of our sister companies to handle the business. So we've been working with them, and we've brought on some new accounts that they couldn't handle themselves, but maybe fell into our territory or were a little bit different makeup, and so it fit Dorn better. So some of the ones that we brought on, and any of you who deal with these accounts may be familiar with them. Guest Supply was the biggest one. We're doing about $100,000 a month with them now, and that is delivering to hotels. So Guest Supply and then Salon Centric is delivering to stores. The nice thing about these two accounts is it's a lot of liftgate deliveries. The drivers have to wheel it in. They have to be in a professional setting, which is different than dock-to-dock deliveries, and we've gotten really good at it. So we've gotten so good that Guest Supply is not going to be turned on Nebraska as soon as we're ready. Salon Centric wants us to handle some more business as well. But that's really helping us learn how to get into that e-commerce market, which is going to be huge. That's going to be the differentiator for carriers in the future because we all order from Amazon every day. So this is exciting that we're getting into this and that we've done such a good job with it. More recently, we've turned on Velux, EMD, Worldpac, Tnemic, which is it's a shipper out of Kansas City that ships a lot of paint, and that's going to have to be protected from freezing. We're adding a lot more heated trailers this year, so that's a perfect account for us. We just found out that we also got the Granger coming out of Cameron, going to Illinois and Missouri. So they're bringing great opportunities to us, and we're excited to be working with them. And here is the personal touch. So we recognize that you all are individuals with individual needs, and this is part of that. We hear in the engagement survey that the parking lot's an issue, and so it's being addressed. I don't have a timeline yet. I just found out this is happening, but we're going to be expanding it out this way and this way. So there'll be more spots, and it will be paved, and it'll be nicer, and it'll be painted clean. So this is the one that's going to affect everyone in this room the most. And then lastly, just want to touch on sales and some things that we're doing here. So when we go and talk to a customer, we used to take a map out and show them a map. Here's Dorn Transfer. What do you have that fits into our network? We don't do that anymore. We bring out these supply chain maps. And matter of fact, we try to even talk before we bring out the supply chain maps. But we want to see on a bigger scale, what customer do you need? I'm not even going to tell you about Dorn. You tell me about your supply chain, and then let me look for solutions for you. So currently our reps are really pushing the Dorn area. They're listening for the Dorn cues. They're going to try to sell that. But they're also, as we get these maps out, people start drawing on them with us. We see that they have freight coming in, we have freight going out, we have small pack, we have export, we have consolidation. We're learning what they have, we're noting it, we're keeping a file of that. That way, as we get a bigger piece to sell, as we have a better relationship with Pitt, Ohio, and maybe we can transfer freight more back and forth there, we understand what customers to go after. And also, if there's a good opportunity that we can't handle but fits well into one of our other sister company networks, we can take it to Pitt, Ohio Supply Chain and let them run with it. So this is the new conversation that we have, is really understanding the customer's total needs and then trying to find ways where we can help wherever we can. For those of you who deal with critical or double critical, there's no more double critical, it's now only critical. So I thought I'd better throw that out there. Some people who, we thought we had 2 lists, we thought we had it down to 1, and it ended up there were 2 lists still going, and I've heard a lot of things come up like, I thought this was on critical, it's not, there's only 1 critical now, there's no more double critical. Another thing we're doing, and I mentioned this already, is we're using data to price our business instead of just a gut feeling. So we're using our costing system. It's taken us 2 years to get it where it needs to be, but it's finally given us real good feedback. So when we cost an account, we can go in and we can look at lanes, we can look at weights, we can price it however we need to price it so that it makes money for us. Rather than just kind of going in and throwing a rate on it and maybe making some money here and losing some money there. So we're doing a lot more of that. And then lastly, we're going to do a real transit time overhaul in our system. So we recognize that we're not competitive in some markets because of our transit times. We're going to be making improvements to our line haul so that we can get better transit times and really go to market, ask for a higher price, and have the best transit times around. So that is starting now. So that is all I have. What do you have? Do you have questions or comments or feedback? How are you feeling that things are going?
I think things are going great. I think the company's moving in a very positive direction.
Good to hear.
It's good to, you feel it just in the company, on the terminal, walking around and stuff, so I think it's good.
But we can continue to improve. So,
absolutely.
Bring ideas. We listen to everything that you bring forth. Put them in the suggestion box. All those get read, and we try to do everything we can to address them. At least understand what the concerns are. What tools can we give you to make your jobs easier? How are you feeling about your job here? What are you feeling that you need that you don't have? Any of that stuff. Make sure you're putting it in the suggestion box so we know. All right. That's all I have. Thanks for coming.